Lee Caraher, and this is Everything Speaks, where we talk about how everything you do and say speaks for you. And Maggie Zeman is back. She's in the house. Thank you, Maggie, for coming back on the pod.
Well, I'm very excited about today's conversation because I get to interview you.
Yes. So Maggie is we're turning the tables. Maggie's going to interview me about two things I've just published. Actually, one is in Forbes, which is the rise of the chief communications officer. And two is our latest point of view, which we issue every 6 times a year, which is the case for fractional chief communications officer and how to build and protect brand reputation. So go ahead, Mags.
Yeah, this is exciting. Yeah. I think this is a really very timely conversation. One of the things that internally we've had a lot of conversations about, and we'll get to this, you're going to cover off on this, on how so much of what we're doing goes beyond product promotion, marketing, public relations, and really is getting into thought leadership, into supporting the executive suite of our clients in so many different ways. And so let's just dive in right now and talk about what many people refer to as the CCO. Mm-hmm. But why don't we start at the very, very beginning, Lee? And just for clarity, will you just remind all of us what CCO stands for and exactly what that role is and who's in that role?
Absolutely. So a CCO is the Chief Communications Officer. And the role of the Chief Communications Officer is the purview of the company's reputation and engagement with the different people who matter to the company or organization for success.
Got it. Perfect.
And it's a pretty new role in terms of pervasiveness in corporate America.
Yeah, definitely the C indicates that it's at the C-suite level, mm-hmm. which means that more times than not, it reports into the CEO.
Correct.
As it should.
As it should.
But there are a few very specific reasons why it mm-hmm. is so important that CEO reports into the CEO. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, let's go back a little bit. So when you and I started our careers just a few years ago, there were CCOs, absolutely. The CCOs basically saved, or, you really only saw chief communications officers in the military or in government or in police departments or, kind of thing. And that's where you saw the title. And you really did not see the title in corporate America at all. And of course, there were some everywhere, but in general, the VP of PR or the VP of communications report up into the CMO, the Chief Marketing Officer in general. Mm-hmm. And basically that doesn't work anymore. And the reason it doesn't work anymore is thinking about many things, but social media changes everything, right? So we started our firm, as I may have told everybody, before Twitter. So, and there's a whole different thought process around communication before Twitter. And then basically Twitter and the internet and social media just break everything open. Mm-hmm. And everybody can be a media channel now, right? So how many times have you seen like one little person who has 3 followers all of a sudden spurs news? So before social media, the public in public relations was really the media. We used, it was thought of as the media or the intermediaries between organization and the people it was trying to reach. And they used media or analysts or that kind of thing, right?
Right.
And social media changes everything.
Yep.
And now the public in public relations is everybody. It's the people at the end of the actual users, the actual buyers, the actual decision makers, and the intermediaries between the organization and those people. Because those people are also media channels. So because they can be media channels now, public relations is actually the public, not the people influencing, just the people influencing the public. So, and this is, before, when we started our careers, PR was the bottom of the frickin' marketing pile, right? Blamed for everything, credited for nothing. I mean, how many times do we have to talk about that? It's all your fault, PR. Yeah, right. But now with this, right, the more and more companies have effed up and effed up over and over and over again. And eventually someone goes, you know what? What if we thought about this before we said something and didn't look at this through a marketing lens? So in the marketing, so let's talk about, I just told you about the role, right, of communications officer. The role of the communications officer is long-term reputation engagement with the people who matter to an organization's success. Long-term reputation.
Mm-hmm.
And I make, for those of you who can't see me, I'm making a long line, long-term reputation. And long-term reputation, that requires trust and a long tail. You do not get trust overnight, right? It doesn't happen. Marketing is the
You can
job.
lose it overnight.
You can lose it overnight in a heartbeat, as they say in Rhode Island.
Mm-hmm.
Marketing's job is not reputation. Marketing's job is short-term pipelining. That's the job. Conversion, pipeline conversion. And when you only have a marketing mindset, you are looking for short-term conversion. You're actually not thinking about reputation. And when you do marketing without a good reputation you have to spend 10x to when you do marketing on top of a good reputation. And these are really two different functions that all work together with the COO and the CRO and all that kind of stuff to help a company be successful. But really, it's very different functions, very different responsibilities. And how many CEOs do we know personally who have put their frickin' foot in their mouths because they just want to rip the Band-Aid off and let's just get the bad news out there and let go. And in today's world, bad news lingers and lingers.
Well, and I think, I think the other thing too is that bad news, any news, is because of the public aspect of it, is more apt to be taken personally, and there is more opportunity for the public to engage in conversation with the brand, and companies historically haven't been prepared for that. And It feels like, I'm curious about your thoughts on this. It feels like the real conversations around, we need one of those. What is that CCO really started during the pandemic, and Black Lives Matter and diversity, equity, and inclusion conversations. And suddenly corporations, any company, privately held or public, especially publicly held, were not prepared for the onslaught of the public, wanting to engage in conversation with brands.
And I think I totally agree. And I think and that also sort of coincides, that's 2020. So think about 2018, 2019, everything that's going on there. And then just the advancement in social media in terms of the functionality of Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp and YouTube and all this kind of stuff, right? So you sort of have it happening at the same time kind of thing, right? And but the CCO job, though, is to have their thumb on the pulse of all the different audiences that matter to an organization. All of them. Marketing's job is to convert. So conversion is just a purchase, right? So it's very different, right? Who influences everything? And this, all that kind of stuff. So
one of the things that I think you just said, which I think would be interesting to dive into a little bit, just in terms of the difference again between marketing, a CMO and a CCO, is that oftentimes the CMO in marketing, they're looking for the trends that they can hijack and be cool or get ahead of the curve, or be creative and that can really bite them. Where it counts, it can oftentimes not work in the brand's
Right.
favor. And
So many times, right?
right. So thinking about that,
Yeah.
And that's been happening a lot lately.
I
Budweiser.
mean, it's just so crazy talk. It's so crazy talk that here we are in 2024 and these things. I mean, every day I like open up my news. I'm like, what's going to be the disaster today?
Right. And so you wondered, are they thinking, do they have CCOs and they're not using them, or do they not? What do you think is
I
going
think,
on there?
well, first, if you go to LinkedIn, you click you search for CEOs, over 400,000 people show up as CEOs. There's no class. And we know in the Fortune 500, probably 25 to 30% of them have CCOs, but that's still only 2,200 people, right? There
Yeah.
aren't enough people who are qualified to be CCOs at companies of any size. There just
Yeah.
aren't, right? And Korn Ferry is the only big executive search firm that is actually tracking CCO. So while CMOs and the shortage of CMOs has been talked about, and it's the shortest period, like you go in, a CMO has the shortest shelf life of any chief officer, unless they're totally incompetent, in the C-suite, because marketing also takes time. And even though it is a short-term thing, you got to do a lot of work. It just takes time to impact. And people don't, and most companies don't, particularly if they're publicly traded, they don't have the patience to wait for the marketing to deliver the results they need in sales. And that's a whole nother conversation. Because the role of CCO is so long tail and so deep, you don't see, for the people who have those jobs, they don't turn over as much because
Right.
their job is not tied to revenue. I mean, no CCO no good CCO is going to have their job tied to revenue because that's not the job. The job is awareness, not conversion.
No,
So,
the CCO is okay. I'm gonna really date us now. I'm taking us way back. Do you remember Fractured Fairy Tales, the
oh my
cartoon?
God.
The CCO has the push broom at the end
Yeah,
of the cartoon.
it's true. It's true. And the other piece of it too is that we have a lot of companies still run by people who do not value communication.
Right.
So younger people who are in the C, meaning the CEO, are much more likely to have a CCO than frankly, older white guys who have had legacy companies who've never thought about it. And if you think about this, here's another way to think about it, right? So earlier, before, I'm going to say before 2015, we used to do, everyone in PR that would do this. What's your message matrix? Who is where? Like Joe is here, he's going to hear this message. And then Sally is here and she needs to hear that message. And Candace is here and she's going to hear this totally different message, right? And we used to totally try to control the message. You can't, that's not how it works anymore, right? Anybody
Right.
can see any message. Before you couldn't, right? Before Google or Yahoo, whatever, you couldn't find other people's messages that easily. You really had to go look for them. And it was so time consuming, right?
Mhm.
But today, Google, and it might be the first thing that pops up, depending on what your search is this very small trade publication with only 1,500 people reading it. And that's what influences you. So you can't bifurcate or trifurcate or quadruplicate, whatever the word is, control your message among audiences. You have to share your story. So we have
Right.
gone from control your message to share your story, right? Totally different mindset. A lot of CEOs hate that. A lot of older people hate that because it's not how they grew up. They don't think it's anyone else's business. And that's, the longer they hold on to it's no one else's business what we think, the longer their business is going to be less efficient, cost more, have more friction, not be as successful, period. That's just
Right.
period, right? So there aren't enough CCOs out there because it's a pretty new title in corporate America. There are very few schools that actually deliver a degree in it. Frankly, to get a master's in communication, like at this point, like you go get an MBA in communication. There's 3 schools. I think it's 3 schools. very few.
Yeah.
And there aren't enough. So frankly, the fact that corporate America is not fully on board with the CCO is not, it's a bad thing because everyone needs one, but there aren't enough people who are qualified to be CCOs who have the depth of experience, the understanding of impact, understand how a message can travel, blah, 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 blah. So, but everybody needs one, even if it's not their own title. Like they function that way, right? And so when I was at Sega, I functioned that way. When I first was hired at Sega, I worked for the chief marketing officer. And then when he left, I said, I will only stay if I can work for the CEO. Because so many times I got stuck. Like, why are we this was a game. Oh my gosh, here we go. Here's a game. And one of the variables on this game was you could make the boobs jiggle or not jiggle.
Oh, for the love.
Conversation was, and I was sometimes the only woman in the room. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Just let the boobs jiggle. We're not letting the boobs jiggle in this game. And they'd be like, Lee, it doesn't matter. It's fine. It's fine. Just no one's going to know. Everybody's going to know. Everybody's going to know. God. And it was a knockdown drag them out on the boobs jiggling. And not only the boobs jiggling, but you could change the size.
Oh, God.
And I was just like, are we really talking about this? Are we really talking about this? Well, this is what our gamers want. You don't give it. And I remember saying this. So, the people from Japan in the room were like, who is this hysterical woman? We're not giving people growable and movable boobs in the game. Literally yelling. And I was so irritated. I said, this is what we're going to stand for? That men and boys can say, we want sexualized characters who aren't even primary characters, but we're going to have more women because they have bigger boobs or smaller boobs, or they move or they don't. And you can change how much they move.
Oh, my God.
It's crazy talk, right? But it was all about that. Like, we're going to sell a lot of games. Yeah. And you're going to destroy the Sonic the Hedgehog.
The brand.
The brand. Because who knows about Sonic the Hedgehog? Moms. Right. Moms know about Sonic the Hedgehog. And if we don't think that moms are going to know that Sega put a game out with movable boobs, please. And it was, I finally actually, I was able to win that argument with some other, it wasn't just me. There are other people who helped on this, but it took a month. It took a month and it was a dicey thing. I was like, oh my God. Now, so the only way I could win, because I reported the CEO.
Yeah.
If I had reported to the marketing person at that time, I would have lost because he would have squelched my voice. Yeah. And because he really wanted the movable boobs. Anyway, so, it's not just about a communications person thinks about the whole piece. Not that marketing people don't, but the goal, a marketing person on a product thinks about, okay, that product is for these people, and I want to get as many of those people to buy the product. And how can I get those people to buy the product? Oh, we're going to have movable boobs. They would have sold a lot of product. Absolutely. And it would have been harder. Actually, oh my God.
Okay. So this actually, this is
25 years ago, right? That was 25 years ago.
Right.
Before the internet. Well, it's not really before the internet. We obviously had internet. We did have internet because I ran the internet, but we had 800 and 900 calls. Moms would flood the zone on the 800 line and cost us so much money. There was an advertisement we had, which is basically a Barbarella type ad. The cost of that in 800 number calls was higher than the cost of the media buy. And they hadn't shown it to me. They did not show. I never, I didn't always see all the because we did so much. I didn't always see the marketing. And my phone started ringing off the hook, and I was like, "What ad is this?" And I remember yelling out, "Hey, Lisa, what? Can you go find the ad? Whatever the hell the name of the game was for." And she brought it in, and then I had to reverse the GL code. I said, "That's a marketing charge. I am not taking that charge onto my P&L for 800 lines."
No way.
Costs more than the media buy.
So what are some modern examples, if you will,
about... how long do we have?
I know, right? But I think we don't have to spend a ton of time on this, but I think it's important, the CCO is such an important role because what you just described is crisis, right? And
An avoidable, totally self-inflicted crisis.
well, so that's what I was going to say is that companies today that understand the value of a CCO and do it correctly have fewer crises.
Absolutely.
And so you can almost, not to do the math and do the research, but you can almost draw a line and say companies that are making mistakes today are not engaging with their CCO
or they don't have one
to the execution, or they don't have one,
or they don't have a CCO, or the communication role, internal or external, is so down the depth chart that it's not even getting heard. Right.
Right.
Well, I think the one that is just so top of mind right now on April 4th is Kellogg's. So in Kellogg's had their I think it was earnings in March, and the CEO, and they dropped a new campaign. It was an updated campaign. Cereal, it's what's for dinner. And basically the CEO went on NBC. It's tough out there, expensive out there. What we should do is people, if you're poor, and I don't know that he used those words, but you should eat, try Frosted Flakes for dinner. It's for dinner. Now, at the same time,
where do you begin?
Where do you begin? Ad campaign. It's what's for dinner. Frosted Flakes is what's for dinner with Tony the Tiger and all that kind of stuff. Where do you begin? At the same time as Kellogg is shrinking their package and increasing their price. So shrinkflation. So even if you had the $5 box of cereal, you would need two to sell, to feed a family of four, not just one. Well, there's probably four. There's just fewer servings. And at dinner, you're not eating one. A serving of cereal is this big, as big as your hand.
Right.
Nobody on the planet who eats a serving of cereal, right? They're eating 2 servings of cereal, period, kind of stuff. So he goes on CNBC, says this. Just crazy talk. And someone asked me, so then, TikTok starts blowing up. Can you believe it? And then someone organizes a boycott that started actually 4 days ago, but really people started using it right away. People would go to the store, and if you're Kellogg's, you're buying that middle shelf with General Mills or whoever, right?
Right.
You can turn on discounts. You can turn on couponing really fast.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go search on TikTok right now for Kellogg's boycott, you will find thousands of videos of people walking down the grocery line going, look, who's for sale? Look, it's all Kellogg's. The yellow stickers at a store. Yellow sticker, yellow sticker, yellow sticker. It's all Kellogg's on sale.
Yeah.
Now, there are also some, and if you're Kellogg's, you can make that happen really fast. A lot of companies could not make that happen very fast. They don't command it. They don't pay for that shelf space. They couldn't make that happen. But if you're Kellogg's, you can make that happen really fast. Also on TikTok, you'll find people are like, look, they're taking the Kellogg's off the brands. And so Pop-Tarts right now, which is a Kellogg's brand, the new packaging on Kellogg's Pop-Tarts does not have the Kellogg's name on the front box. There's no way in hell that they've changed that out in distribution, because that's not possible.
Right. That's not right. No.
They're conflating these two things. It's not possible, but there's getting a lot of traction for people who don't understand how grocery store distribution works.
Right.
They're like, look, and they took it off the box. That's probably not what happened. I can't imagine that's what happened. But that's the narrative is that Kellogg's is taking their brand off the box because of this boycott that is on Pop-Tarts. And that's probably not what happened. But
it's not what happened, but
the narrative,
there's another narrative that needs to be cleaned up. And by
they're not going to bother cleaning it up. Now,
right.
So I don't know if they have. I assume Kellogg's a huge company. I assume they have a CCO, but maybe not. Right? Maybe not. Or if they did, they weren't listened to, or that person is not valued by the CEO, or that CEO didn't know. Very possible.
Right.
Very possible. So many brands, so many things going on. Very possible. Or the person was like, gave their advice, didn't fall on the sword because they're exhausted of falling on the sword all the time, and said, all right, well, let me know how that goes. Because that's what I probably would have done. I'd be like, okay, I'll be here if you need me. Right.
Well, yeah. And, now this is, and if you're in the industry in communications, the bleachers are full of PR professionals who now are sitting back and watching.
Oh my God.
And also, who is going, which brand will take advantage of this?
Yeah.
With healthy dinners for families in
absolutely.
communities,
or take, here's the cost of 2 boxes of Frosted Flakes. Here's a dinner you can make for the same amount that's nutritional, da 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 da. Right. I mean, I've already seen that's there. Here's how, it costs $12 to get 2 boxes of Frosted Flakes plus the milk. For $12, you can do this, and this, right? Kind of thing. So, right. It's self-inflicted wounds. I would say self-inflicted. You can't always, self-inflicted. You're not going to know everything. CCOs are human. They're not going to be fully prescient 100% of the time. But a person who's responsible for thinking about the impact of someone who's not supposed to see that message. It's crazy. It's crazy talk, right? And so there's another way of thinking about is, so I saw a couple things. So layoffs. Just think about the layoffs this in the first quarter. So layoffs are a great, how you lay somebody off says so much about who you are as a company, right? So, and it has a direct impact on your company's reputation, number one, and your company's ability to hire new people. And more importantly, your abilities to keep the people you kept. Right. Because actually we see in large layoffs that are poorly done, that the people who are left behind, 40% of them leave within 18 months. Right. Which means that you are spending, again, three times amount. So to cover an involuntary churn, it's 3x that person's salary to replace you. Mm-hmm. So if you do it poorly, it's a long ass. Who's going to take that job? Right. No one's going to take that job. No. And there's a lot. I mean, number one. And number two, you're going to lose your people. Right. The culture gets. And we also know that's demoralizing for the people left behind, because now, depending on how this is a poorly done layoff, right? And demoralizing. So therefore your productivity drops. We know all about that when morale impacts productivity every single time on the plus and the minus. And so you got rid of people, your productivity drops, and then you lose people. I mean, it is a downward slope versus a company who does it well. And, and which is thinking long, thinking, how do you have an authentic, this is the business, here's what we're doing. Now, a few things on this. One, on layoffs, we've seen so many layoffs for companies who have incredible profits, highest profits ever, and they're laying thousands of people off. Right. And we can all see it. We all see you, right? Right. So paying the CEO, paying the board. Oh my gosh, the CEO. Now it's like, 2,000 times the bottom rate. And so you get the CEO and the board, or McKinsey or Deloitte going, just rip the Band-Aid off. Let's get it done. We got to execute all this stuff. And the Warren Act makes you, if you're publicly if you have a certain number of employees, you have to do the Warren Act, which is a 90-day notice that you're going to get laid off. Blah, 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 blah. Just rip the Band-Aid off. Just get it done. As opposed to, let's think about our long-term reputation. Let's think about how we're going to keep the people in here, all these things, right? So you and I have both been through corporate layoffs. And, at corporate layoffs, the people who are left behind, who are the keystone people, they're offered a lot of money to stay, right? And the day and they're tied up for however many months. And then that day plus one day, that whatever that day is plus one day, usually you'll see 10, 20, 30% of those people leave. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, over and over and over again. And I just said McKinsey because they'll have here's the plan, right? Blah, 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 or Bain or Deloitte, or whoever it is. But let me just say a few things I've seen, right? So Deloitte, I've talked to several people who are Deloitte former employees who got laid off or made redundant or whatever it is, and just so atrocious, so atrocious. I just saw that McKinsey's offering people a lot of money, like $300,000-$400,000 to quit. Now, the same impact in dollars, right?
Right.
It's probably more dollars if you lay some off badly, because they're all going to, those are smart people that are going to come back around. You're going to have to do a separate, you're going to have to do more, right? So they're offering people bunches of cash, McKinsey, this is what I understand, to quit. Just think about it. It's the same number of dollars to quit versus it is to lay people off.
Well, and I mean, it's
Same number of dollars.
Yeah.
It's the net effect of people leaving. It's the net effect of saying, I have too many people, we'll pay you to quit, blah, blah, blah. And at the same time, McKinsey has the strongest alumni network. It has the gold standard of alumni networks. So you get to stick in the alumni network. It is the network of a networks in terms of job
You've
prospects
just created
and all that kind
ambassadors for your brand.
Ambassador. Versus literally just talked to 3 people from Deloitte who got laid off in different regions too. It was all over the place. They're like, I'm A, never going to recommend them. B, never going go hire Bain or whoever instead of Deloitte.
Right.
Number 1. Number 2, never going to work for you again. And we all know that boomerangs, we're going to need more boomerangs because there aren't enough people.
Right.
And then 3, we'll never recommend you. So it is true on the consulting side of the business, McKinsey might be saying, get rid of those people. And they may not be saying, do it well, right?
Right.
But at the same time, in their own business, they are doing it, I assume, because I haven't, I assume that is a different message to the world, right?
Well, the assumption is that they're practicing what they preach.
Well, we shouldn't make that assumption, but we can only hope.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, well, okay. So we've talked about a couple different scenarios in which a CCO is of value to an organization. Let's continue down that path, because I think it's
there's lots of reasons
to happen. We've talked about crisis. We've talked about long tail reputation, but a CCO can bring so much value. And for companies that are considering the importance of a CCO but maybe cannot afford to hire at that level full time, the concept of a fractional CCO is really, really intriguing. And that's something that we should talk about as well.
I think on the fractional, the fractional CMO has been around for about a decade, maybe 15 years, because there aren't enough. Again, there are not enough CMOs know what they're doing, and they're expensive, right? Fractional CCOs, there aren't very many. I mean, in comparison, there aren't very many on the networks kind of thing. And in many cases, an agency could fill that role. And in the last 4 years for us, last 3.5 years for us, Double Forte, we have done CCO work for 13 clients, many of them who were not existing clients. Clients we can't put on our website,
right?
Or had those, and in other cases have added that service to an existing client for a specific period of time to deal with things like when people are thinking about, I'm going to exit the market. We're going to have not just crisis. So there's crisis, obviously, or there's when self-inflicted crisis or a crisis that is not self-inflicted, happens all the time. You want somebody who's thinking the long term on that, right? So that's all brand. Or where we have done it at Double Forte, we have done it for when there's a change in leadership. So succession planning, best to do it before the new person's in place. Just going to say it. An ounce of prevention goes a long way, right?
Right.
Transition or an exit from the market, either by closing. We've helped 2 companies who thought they were going to close down for a lot of different reasons. And actually they got acquired instead, because part of the reason was because we were thinking the long term, and they just got a different position in the marketplace because of that. When you can't hire, when you're having a hard time hiring. One of our most successful projects we did was for a client around hiring, recruiting. And that project was to rewrite 72 job descriptions for the post, not the job description, but the job post. And their recruiting cycle went from 7 weeks to 2 weeks in terms of getting the same number of people in based on new job posts, 7 weeks to 2 weeks.
Yep.
Because of how you talk about the company and the opportunity. So
Right.
you're having a hard time that, right? Also if you're getting a lot of consumer churn, right? Customer churn, you're going to look at the whole thing, right? Like, why don't people trust us? Well, I'll tell you why they don't trust you, blah, 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 blah. Because usually if those things are true, then you don't have somebody who has the authority or the gravitas to actually have a say at the table. And then also a good time to do it is when you're thinking about brand extension. So you might have a brand in, we're doing this right now for a client that you manage, right? So it's a lifestyle brand, and they're extending into all very different categories that will build the brand over time, but they're very different audiences, very different products. You want to think about, like, what are you dropping in? Is it adjacent, or is it part, or just thinking about the whole piece, right?
Right.
And those are things that you can do in a fractional way, right? You could do it in a fractional way, which is, 20%, 30% of someone's time. Someone who has at least 10 years of experience, has been through a lot of things, has seen a lot of crap, right?
Right.
And guided an organization through these kinds of big transitions, where for us, it's been probably 30% of one of our person's times for 3 months. And then the longest one, I think, was 18 months. So we can get in, assess, diagnose, plan, create, and get out, and then help them execute at just a much higher level at that. And then, it used to be, in agency talk, it's called corporate comm, right? But it's really getting much closer than the corp comm team. It's sitting at the table and making sure that you have the authority to have the, and the believability and the gravitas to say, yeah, this is how we should.
Well, and I think it's important to put a label to that activity, because
that's really important. That's a good point. Yeah.
And to the function, because I think you're right. I think, we have found ourselves in positions where, get in, get out, but it's a long-term client that we're with for a long time. So we are able to leverage our senior team and get in there and help them with the vision for the long run, and understand where they sit now, how the addition of these new products in different categories
or people or competitor in the marketplace or whatever.
And then move forward with that strategy, again, with the supportive team that is executing on the launch, on the media relations, on the social media, on the marketing aspect of it. So I think it's really important to really call out, to put that label on it, and so that people really do understand what it is and the value add that a CCO, fractional or full-time, can have on your brand and your company.
It's also an interesting time for this, because there are a lot of people around our age who are going to be retiring but still need to work or want to work, who have a bunch of experience, right? Who may be a bit more available for a fractional kind of situation. They don't want a full-time job. They'll take a part-time job, or they'll take a short-term period of time, to bring their expertise to bear. There are, in the next 5-10 years, there'll be a lot of people exiting the regular workplace to have their individual, their next gig right after that. And they have to work longer. That's just the deal. That's what's happening in the world, right? And the thing about having, it's, do I think everyone needs a CCO? Yep, I do. There are not enough of them. That'll change in the next 10 years, right? They'll change because we've seen that there are more PR people today than there were when we started our careers. actual practitioners, not just support, right? And the, in 15 years, I don't think, again, when we started, there were none unless you were in government or in the military. And now probably 20-25% of Fortune 500 has them. Another 15 years, everyone will have one. And that'll probably catch up to, well, we have a problem with demographics, but we have an advantage of time on that. So that really, the role will be understood as, they're tasked with shaping and delivering a company's message to internal and external audiences, influencing perceptions and building trust. That is the job.
Yeah.
And more companies are appreciating that role because they're biting themselves in the ass by doing things the old way.
Right.
Or they just don't think about it. Like, just rip the Band-Aid off, and they have no concept of how much inefficiency they are creating by not thinking about all the audiences and what they're going to see, right? And there's going to be less and less appetite for inefficiency.
The fact that there already is, the fact that consumers, here we're heading not to go down this path, but we're heading into an election year where consumers are, have opinions across the board.
Yeah.
And
on both sides, right? Both sides of the aisle on that.
1,000%. Yeah. And brands will be affected by this.
Well, and, here we are in the United States, 300 million people. There's a market for everybody, and every market needs to be engaged.
Right.
Right. And every market needs trust, kind of thing.
And needs to know how to be engaged.
Yeah, exactly.
Correctly.
So, we always, another thing we always, particularly, so Maggie and I both come out of Silicon Valley, blah, blah, blah. And always from the board, the Silicon Valley board is like, we got a PR problem. Like, no, you got no PR problem. You have a business problem that PR cannot solve because you're making bad decisions.
Right.
And if you think about it from that context, we got a big business problem. Yeah, the only reason you get bad PR in general is you got a bad decision.
Right.
Right. And in the world of moving from control your message to share your message, this big pivot, huge 180-degree pivot, can't control it. Did you make that decision or didn't you? Were you an ass or weren't you? Did you allow this behavior to happen or didn't you? I mean, off the top, my head is like, I got a ticker about in my brain right now of all the companies, right? And and how long it takes to recover from that because of the incredible transparency that the internet has provided us or forced on us, depending on your point of view. And that genie is out of the bottle. Aladdin's not going back, Robin Williams is not going back into that bottle, right? The faster people understand that everybody matters, when everybody matters, you can't control anything.
Right.
But here's the deal. The good news is that you can control yourself. You can control how you do things. You can control what you say. You can control your behavior. You control, what you write. You can control what Zoom call is. You can control all of those things. You can't control the world around you. You can't control how people are going to react to you, but you can control your own behavior, your own message, your own policies. Everything speaks. I got to get back around to this. And if you control yourself with the thought process of share your story, everyone can see your story, you're just not going to make so many self-inflicted wounds.
That is the result of embracing that point of view.
Yeah, exactly. One thing, so if you need a CCO, right, one, you could go find one. I mean, there are people there, Korn Ferry has got the biggest practice on it if you're doing it at the biggest level, right? But if you need a fractional, where would you go to get one? You can check on, do the Google, do the LinkedIn search on the title, but make sure it's a real CCO, not someone who said, I'm 19 years old, I'm a CCO. Happens. You could ask your agency, like, do you have a former employee who could be our CCO that you know really well? Or can you give us your senior vice president for 30% of his or her time for the next 3 months, blah, 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 right? Or there are some Upwork-like platforms that have CCOs on them. But credentialing is really important and fit is really important. If you don't trust the person, don't bother. Right? Don't bother hiring them. Spend a lot of money not to be listened to. All right. This is what I said before. Like, if I had been at Kellogg's and they said, sure, we're going to go out with this, and they didn't listen to me, I'd be like, all right, let me know how that goes.
Yeah.
Stuff's going off my nose.
So true.
Well, of course, if there is a CCO, they are dying right now. They're like, and there'll be a book. There'll be a book. Can't wait for that book.
Oh
my gosh.
Such a mess.
It's a mess. And more and more companies are not making that mess, which really brings into relief the companies that were not understanding the situation.
It's shocking.
Right?
It's absolutely shocking.
Well, it's also hubris, right? It's like,
it is hubris.
I can do whatever I want. This is the way it's supposed to work. It's no one else's business, blah, blah, blah. How many conversations have you and I had with our clients? It's everybody's business.
Right. Step outside yourself, right?
It's everybody's business because everybody has the power now. I can go on. Can you tell?
I know. We're passionate about this stuff.
We are. All right.
So
anything else? Any other questions for me?
I think we covered Chief Communications Officer, full stop.
Full stop. You need one. The end. I'm sorry. You need a good one.
Yes.
How about that? You need a good one. Who knows what the hell they're doing?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, okay, I'm going to take it back the whole then, which is, thank you so much for hosting today, Maggie. Appreciate it.
Thank you for letting me host. Thank you for your insights.
And everything speaks, people. Control yourself. You control yourself because you can't control anything else. Share your, and just, can't control the message. You can share your story. Pivot. That's it for today. And until next time, I'm Lee Caraher, and that's Maggie Zeman. And we are Everything Speaks. Bye.